It was an October evening in Manhattan, and the lights from towering skyscrapers reflected off the glass facade of the Wellington Hotel, where New York's financial elite had gathered for a lavish gala. In the opulent ballroom, 25-year-old Amara Davis moved skillfully between Armani suits and Chanel gowns, balancing a tray of champagne. Her natural curls were neatly tied back, and her bright brown eyes scanned the crowd with curiosity and caution. Amara, the daughter of a working-class family in Harlem, worked evening shifts as a server to pay for her part-time business administration classes at a community college. She dreamed of building her own company one day, but for now, she was trying not to spill the drinks. "Excuse me, could you bring the lobster tray over to this corner?" A warm, deep voice interrupted Amara's thoughts. She turned to face James Carver, 32, a Wall Street investment fund director, with sharp blue eyes, neatly combed brown hair, and a tailored suit hugging his frame. James exuded the confidence of someone well acquainted with power. He smiled, his gaze lingering on her longer than necessary. "I'm James," he said, extending his hand, an unusual gesture toward a server. "Amara," she replied, shaking his hand quickly, maintaining a professional tone, though her heart beat slightly faster. "Amara," James repeated, as if committing it to memory. "Have you been working here long? Is this a temporary thing?" The question sounded casual, but Amara detected a hint of condescension in his tone. She smiled lightly. "Temporary. I'm studying business administration and trying to cover my tuition." James raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Ambitious. What do you plan to do with that degree?" She hesitated, unaccustomed to sharing her dreams with strangers, especially someone like James, who belonged to a different world. "I want to start a business, a non-profit, something that helps kids from my neighborhood get better educational opportunities." James nodded, his eyes lighting up. "A noble mission. But you know, the business world isn't easy, especially for those who don't have many resources." Amara understood his implication. As a black woman from Harlem, she was familiar with the veiled comments alluding to her background, but she showed no sign of discomfort. "I know," she said firmly, "but I'm not afraid of hard work." James chuckled, picking a lobster from her tray. "I like that attitude. You strike me as someone who knows what she wants." The conversation lasted only a few minutes, but Amara could feel James's gaze following her as she resumed serving. When the gala ended and she was clearing tables, her manager handed her a business card. "A guest left this for you," he said. On the card was the name James Carver, with a handwritten note. "Coffee tomorrow? I'd like to hear more about your dreams. James." A phone number was scrawled underneath. Amara gripped the card, conflicted. She wasn't naive. She knew men like James rarely took genuine interest in women like her. But something in his eyes, a mix of curiosity and admiration, made her want to believe this wasn't just another game of the elite. She slipped the card into her pocket, deciding to think it over. Coffee couldn't hurt, she told herself, stepping out of the hotel and merging into the night crowd on the streets of New York. The next day, Amara arrived at a small cafe in Soho, wearing a simple yet elegant navy dress, her curls left loose. James was already there, in a white shirt without a tie, looking more relaxed than the night before. He stood when he saw her pulling out a chair, a polite gesture that caught her off guard. "Thanks for coming," he said, ordering her a latte. "I kept thinking about your story all night. A girl from Harlem is studying business and trying to change the world. That's not something you hear daily." Amara smiled, slightly embarrassed. "I'm not anything special, just trying not to give up." She told him about her childhood in Harlem, the colorful yet tough streets, her parents working tirelessly to raise her and her younger brother. James listened, nodding occasionally, eyes fixed on her. He shared his story. Graduating from Yale, rising quickly in finance, owning an apartment on the Upper East Side. He said, "I work because I'm passionate," though Amara detected a trace of arrogance in his tone, as if success had always been inevitable. Their conversation lasted longer than expected, from personal dreams to market trends. Amara surprised herself with how confidently she debated nonprofit business strategies, prompting James to raise his eyebrows in admiration. "You have a sharp business mind, Amara," he said as they left the cafe. "See you again? There's an art exhibition in Chelsea this Saturday. I think you'll enjoy it." Amara nodded, her heart racing. When she returned to her small Harlem apartment, she sat on the sofa, staring at James's business card, feeling torn. She knew his world, powerful boardrooms, elite clubs, wasn't made for people like her. But she also felt drawn to him, not just by his appearance, but by the way he made her feel seen. "It's just coffee, just an exhibition," she told herself. But deep down, she knew this was the beginning of something bigger, possibly more dangerous than anything she'd ever known. On an October evening in Manhattan, the neon lights from street signs reflected through the windows of a small cafe in Soho. Amara Davis sat across from James Carver in the cozy space, the aroma of freshly roasted coffee mingling with soft jazz music. She wore a simple navy blue dress, last season's sale item, but styled it elegantly. James loosened in a gray suit without the jacket and his tie, and looked at her with curiosity and amusement. It was their second date following their fateful encounter at the Wellington Hotel gala the previous week. "You're not like anyone I've met before," James said, stirring his espresso with a silver spoon, his deep voice rich with meaning. "Most people at that gala were trying to impress. But you didn't seem to care about proving anything." Amara smiled, though a trace of caution stirred within her. "Maybe because I have nothing to lose," she replied, half joking. "I'm just a server trying to pay tuition and not miss the subway." James laughed loudly, the sound turning a few heads nearby. "So modest, Amara. I noticed how you watched people that night, as if you were analyzing the whole room. What are you studying to be that sharp?" She shrugged and told him about her night classes at the community college, where she pursued a business administration degree. "I want to start a business, maybe a nonprofit, to help kids in Harlem get better access to education. My parents always said education is the key, but where I grew up, that key is often locked inside a safe." James nodded, his eyes showing a hint of admiration. "Big ambition. But reality's tough, Amara. You'll need capital, connections, and a bit of luck, too. Do you have a plan to start?" She paused, wondering if he was testing her or genuinely interested. "I'm learning how to build from nothing, step by step. Start saving from part-time jobs, then look for scholarships to continue studying. I don't expect someone to open the door for me. I'll break it down if I have to." James looked at her, his eyes lighting up. "That's the spirit I like. If you ever need advice, I know a few people who could help, but—" He hesitated, lowering his voice. "You must understand, this world is harsh, especially for people like you." She frowned. "What do you mean, people like me?" James raised his hands as if to soften the blow. "I mean people without a background, no Ivy League, no powerful family. I'm not talking about, anything else." But Amara knew precisely what he meant. As a black woman from Harlem, she was familiar with such veiled remarks. She forced a smile and changed the subject. "What about you? Someone like you must have it all." James talked about his journey, graduating from Yale, climbing fast in finance, owning an apartment on the Upper East Side, and a vacation home in the Hamptons. He spoke casually, as if it were all normal. But when Amara asked about his family, he gave a short answer. My parents live in Connecticut. I don't see them much. Work keeps me busy. The conversation stretched another hour, and James gently held her hand as they left the cafe. This Saturday, are you free? There's an art exhibit in Chelsea that I think you'd enjoy. Amara nodded, her heart quickening, but a question lingered. Did he truly see her, or just a compelling story? Amara and James became essential parts of each other's lives in the next 3 months. They met several times weekly, from dinners at upscale Italian restaurants to long walks along the Hudson River. James gave her a Hermes silk scarf on her birthday, a lavish gift that left her both touched and uneasy. I want you to feel special, he said, kissing her forehead. Amara kept the scarf in its box, too afraid to wear it for fear of damaging it. But small cracks began to appear. James never invited her to work events or introduced her to his friends. Once, when she suggested meeting his colleagues at a charity party, James gave a sheepish smile. They're not that interesting, Amara. Just stocks and golf talk. You'd be bored. She nodded, but his words left a sting. She realized he only saw her in private settings, small cafes, quiet restaurants far from his usual circles. One evening, as they sat in her small Harlem apartment, Amara gathered her courage and asked, James, are you ashamed to be with me? I mean, because I'm me? James frowned and put down his wine glass. Ashamed? No, Amara. Why would you think that? I'm here, aren't I? But his eyes avoided hers, and she sensed hesitation. It's just that my world is complicated. There are expectations and standards. I don't want you to face that. Standards? Amara repeated, her voice sharper. You mean I don't fit in with your friends? What about your job? Because I'm a black girl from Harlem, not Greenwich. James sighed, rubbing his temples. You're blowing this out of proportion. It's not that. You just don't understand how things work yet. I want to protect you from unnecessary judgment. Amara felt her face flush. Protect me? Or protect yourself? She stood up, pacing the small room. James, I don't need you to hide me. If you love me, you'd be proud of me, no matter where I'm from or what I look like. James stood, taking her hand. I do love you, Amara. But I also have to be realistic. My career depends on image and relationships. I don't want us under scrutiny. She pulled her hand away and met his eyes. Then what am I to you? A secret? A temporary thrill? James said nothing, and that silence said it all. He embraced her, whispering apologies, but Amara felt a growing distance between them. She let him leave, closed the door behind him, and sat on the sofa, covering her face. The tears didn't fall, but her heart was heavy. She knew their love was standing at a crossroads and feared she would have to choose between her heart and her dignity. Amara tried to hold on to the relationship in the following weeks, hoping James would change. But each time he refused to bring her to an event, each time he dodged talks of the future, she felt smaller. She began writing a journal about the feeling of being diminished, her dreams, and her fear of losing herself in this love. One evening, after James canceled at the last minute due to a sudden meeting, Amara sat in front of her mirror, staring into her tired eyes. She remembered her mother's words. You deserve someone who lifts you, not drags you down. She texted James, we need to talk, tomorrow, at my place. 7 p.m. She didn't know that conversation would change her life forever, nor that what James was about to say would launch her into a journey more painful and radiant than anything she had ever imagined. Amara Davis's small Harlem apartment was filled with the warm aroma of roasted chicken, a traditional recipe from her mother. The dinner table was warmly set, using mismatched second-hand dishes she'd bought from a thrift store, with a single flickering candle glowing in the center. Now 25 years old, Amara stood in front of the mirror, gently smoothing her earth-toned knit dress, trying to steady the tremble in her hands. On the kitchen counter lay a pregnancy test. 2 unmistakable pink lines, quiet and still, like a secret waiting to be told. She had prepared to tell James Carver, the man she had been dating for the past 4 months, about this unexpected news. James arrived on time, carrying an expensive bottle of red wine, his familiar smile lighting up the room. But Amara noticed something distant in him. He kept checking his phone between distracted exchanges. "Smells fantastic," he said as he sat down at the table, pouring the wine into their glasses. "It reminds me of those Italian dinners last week." Amara offered a faint smile, her heart pounding. She took a deep breath, placing her hand on the table to stay composed. "James, before we eat, I need to tell you something." He looked up, frowning at the seriousness in her tone. "What is it? Are you okay?" She looked directly into his sharp blue eyes, the same eyes that once made her heart flutter. "I'm pregnant with triplets." The words fell softly, yet heavily, like a stone breaking the stillness of a pond. James slowly set down his wine glass, the motion deliberate and controlled. His face froze, the smile gone. "You're what? Pregnant? With triplets?" He stood up abruptly, pacing the cramped space of her apartment, his hand rubbing his temple. "Amara, do you understand what my life is like? I'm about to be promoted to executive director. A family, especially this, isn't in my plans." Amara felt her heart tighten. "What do you mean, this?" Her voice was steady, though her mind was in chaos. She had prepared for a surprise, but not this coldness. James stopped and looked at her with a mixture of anger and detachment. "I mean, you don't fit, Amara. You're a wonderful girl, but not part of my world. No Yale, no powerful family, none of the things it takes to stand beside me. 1 child is already too much. But 3? That's impossible." She rose to her feet, facing him, her voice shaking with fury. "Not part of your world? James, I don't need a degree or a house in the Hamptons to know my worth. These are our children. You can't just walk away from that." James sighed, pulled out his wallet, and took out a stack of cash, $2,000, which he placed on the table. "Take care of it, Amara. Use this money for whatever you want. But don't contact me again. I can't let this ruin my career." He turned and walked out without looking back. The door slammed behind him. Amara stood still in the center of the room, her hands unconsciously cradling her belly. Tears welled up, but she gritted her teeth, refusing to cry. The money on the table felt like an insult, but she didn't touch it. "Babies," she whispered. "I'm not leaving you, no matter what." "Oh." The following weeks were a nightmare. Carrying triplets drained Amara. The intense morning sickness made it hard to keep food down. Her manager noticed her frequent bathroom breaks at the Wall Street Cafe, where she worked morning shifts. "Amara, you're not productive anymore," he said, avoiding her growing belly. "We'll have to cut your hours." Her evening server job at the Wellington Hotel wasn't any better. Her supervisor said, "We need staff who look professional," clearly referring to her pregnancy. The shifts became fewer and soon disappeared entirely. Amara received an eviction notice by January, with her savings exhausted and bills piling up. Her landlord, though sympathetic, was firm. "I've got a business to run too, you understand?" One cold night, Amara called her mother, Grace, while huddled on her best friend's couch, Keisha. "Mom, I'm sorry," she sobbed and told her everything. Her parents, who struggled to get by on working-class wages in Harlem, sold her father's old car, his pride and joy, to send her $4,000. "You're stronger than you think, Amara," Grace told her over the phone. "Take care of my grandbabies." With that money, Amara rented a small apartment in the Bronx, a cramped space with rust-stained faucets and creaky floors. She moved in with a few suitcases of clothes, an old armchair, and her heavily annotated business textbooks, all on a drizzly afternoon. Every step felt heavy with her growing body, but also with determination. In May 2008, Amara lay on a hospital bed in a public facility, gripping Keisha's hand through the searing contractions. There was no anesthesia. Medicaid only covered part of the cost, so every wave of pain etched itself into her memory. "You've got this, Amara. You can do it," Keisha whispered, wiping sweat from her brow. After 18 agonizing hours, Chloe was born. Her tiny cry was soft but vibrant. Mia followed 12 minutes later, and Zoe 7 minutes after that. The three baby girls, small and delicate, with light brown skin and striking blue eyes just like James's, were placed in incubators. They were born prematurely. Amara was wheeled into the NICU and the recovery room to see them. She touched Chloe's tiny hand through the glass, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "They've got his eyes, but they'll be mine. I'll give them everything I have." A nurse, an older woman with a gentle voice, smiled. "Three strong little princesses, just like their mama." Amara nodded, a wave of pride and fear swelling within her. She looked at the three of them, Chloe with curious eyes, Mia with a tiny, perfect mouth, and Zoe with a strange calm, and made a vow. "I will build a world where you're never seen as less, not out of revenge, but because you deserve it." The small apartment in the Bronx where Amara Davis lived with her newborn triplet daughters, Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, was a cramped space, thick with the scent of baby formula and diapers. The walls were stained, the rusted faucet dripped continuously, and car horns from the street below echoed like an unending soundtrack. Amara, now 26, sat in a worn-out armchair, cradling Chloe in one arm, while gently rocking Mia in a second-hand baby swing she'd found on the curb. Zoe slept peacefully in a laundry basket lined with blankets. Every little sound from the babies startled her, prompting a quick check to ensure they were okay. On her first night home from the hospital, she'd only managed 45 minutes of sleep, her eyes stinging from exhaustion and worry. She looked around the apartment, a few suitcases of clothes, a folding table serving as a desk, and stacks of business administration textbooks filled with notes. She'd lost her cafe job and her evening server position. Rent was due soon, and the $4,000 her parents had sent was only enough to survive a few months. Numbers swirled in her head. $267 in her bank account, a $120 electricity bill, and nearly $200 per month for baby formula and diapers for 3. But when she looked into the blue eyes of Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, the same eyes that reminded her of James Carver, the man who had abandoned her with just $2,000, Amara felt a flame of determination ignite. "You girls are my reason," she whispered, "and I'll do anything to give you a better life." The first months were a survival battle. Amara juggled an unforgiving routine, feeding 3 babies, changing diapers, soothing cries, and squeezing in rare moments to job hunt. She applied for WIC assistance, but the paperwork dragged on, and she often had to choose between buying food for herself or special formula for Zoe, the smallest, who had acid reflux. One time, when the power bill went overdue, she sat in the dark, lit only by her phone screen, typing job applications one-handed while holding Mia. Keisha, Amara's best friend, was her only pillar of support. She brought hot meals and hand-me-down baby clothes from cousins. "You're a superhero, Amara," Keisha said, helping fold diapers as Chloe wailed. "But you can't do it all alone. Let me help more." Amara shook her head with a faint smile. "I don't want to be a burden, Keisha. I have to do this myself. One morning, when the babies were 3 months old, Amara pushed a triple stroller to the local public library, where there was air conditioning and free internet. She laid them down to nap in the stroller, opened her old laptop, and began learning web design through free online courses. Every HTML tag she understood felt like a glimmer of hope. If I can make a basic website, I can work from home, she told herself. Eyes locked on the screen as her hand rocked the stroller. Her first opportunity came unexpectedly. A florist in the Bronx, referred by Keisha, needed a simple website. Amara worked 3 nights straight while the babies slept to finish the project. She delivered a basic site with floral images and contact info and earned $100. It wasn't much, but enough for a week's worth of diapers and formula. As she saw her bank balance go up, tears rolled down her face. "This is the beginning, girls," she said, kissing Zoe on the forehead. But the challenges didn't stop. Winter arrived, and the heating system in the building broke down, dropping the apartment temperature to 50 degrees. Amara gathered every blanket and piece of clothing, creating a nest on the sofa and laying the babies against her for warmth. She rotated them in her arms throughout the night, terrified they'd catch a chill. One night, when Chloe started coughing, Amara panicked, fearing pneumonia. She boiled water on the gas stove to create steam, humming lullabies with a trembling voice. "Just a few more days," she told herself, after the building manager said repairs would take 3 days. Amara faced a hard choice: use her last $300 on a portable heater or invest it in an advanced web design course. Guided by gut instinct, she chose the course. She told the babies that this is for our future, even though they couldn't understand. She began learning CSS and JavaScript, working by candlelight while the girls slept in her arms. When the heating was finally fixed, Chloe stopped coughing, and Amara felt like she had passed a significant test. By the time the babies were 6 months old, Amara had built a small list of clients, 2 bakeries and an auto repair shop. She earned $500 for a big project, a payday that was a significant victory. Sitting on the apartment floor, she breastfed Mia while checking emails on her laptop. A bank notification popped up, and she froze. Her balance read $1,872. "Look, Mia," she said, pointing to the screen. "This is the first step to getting us out of here." That night, Amara wrote her first business plan in a cheap notebook. She named it Davis Designs, founded in 2008, was profitable by 2009. Her goals were ambitious: triple her client base in 6 months, learn app design, and move into a bigger apartment before the girl's first birthday. But her biggest goal, written in red ink: prove we are enough. Not for him, for us. Amara looked at her 3 sleeping daughters, their tiny faces already hinting at their personalities. Chloe, curious. Mia, energetic. Zoe, quietly observant. She knew the road ahead was long, but each small step, every line of code, every dollar saved, was another brick in the foundation of their future. "We can do this," she whispered. "Because you girls, you are my whole world." The dim light from an old desk lamp illuminated Amara Davis's notebook, where she had just written down a few lines of HTML learned from a free online course. Her small Bronx apartment still smelled of baby formula and diapers, but now it had become the center of a quiet revolution. Amara, 26, sat on the floor, her worn-out laptop perched on a folding table, one hand typing, the other gently rocking a second-hand baby rocker where Mia slept. Chloe and Zoe, now 6 months old, lay nearby in a stroller, their blue eyes, a legacy from James Carver, sparkling under the lamp's glow. The blaring car horns from the street below blended with the steady breathing of her children, forming the soundtrack of Amara's sleepless nights. After 6 months of being a single mother to triplets, Amara had found a harsh but workable rhythm. She was earning small sums through freelance web design, primarily for local Bronx businesses, enough to cover formula, diapers, and the electricity bill. But she knew these $100 or $200 jobs wouldn't be enough to get her and her children out of that cramped apartment. "There has to be something bigger," she murmured, eyes fixed on her laptop screen as she experimented with a sample website for a new bakery. The idea came to her on a rainy night while Chloe cried from teething and Amara struggled to finish an overdue project. She realized that mothers raising triplets faced unique challenges. Feeding, sleeping, and medication schedules were a nightmare to organize. As she rocked Chloe, a thought struck her. If an app could help manage all of this, life would be much easier. That thought wouldn't let go. Amara began teaching herself mobile app development using free online resources. She downloaded Xcode to her laptop and spent her daughter's nap times watching YouTube tutorials and practicing basic Swift programming. Each line of code was a battle, but also a small victory. She named the app Triad Care, aiming to help mothers of triplets track everything: feedings, medications, and sleep, within a straightforward interface. The development process stretched over 3 months and cost her what little sleep she had left. She worked by dim lamplight, constantly pausing to change a diaper or soothe Zoe, the most easily startled. One time, Mia knocked over a cup of coffee onto her keyboard, and Amara nearly cried, but wiped it down and kept going. "This is for you girls," she reminded herself whenever she felt like giving up. By August 2008, when Chloe, Mia, and Zoe were 9 months old, Amara completed the first version of Triad Care. The interface wasn't flashy, but it worked. A simple app with tracking charts and reminder notifications. She uploaded the app to the App Store, not expecting much, only hoping a few mothers might find it helpful. "If we get 10 downloads, I'll buy us a cake," she joked to her daughters, kissing Chloe's cheek. 2 weeks later, an unexpected email changed everything. Amara was breastfeeding Zoe when a notification popped up. An email from a popular blog, Modern Multiples. "Dear Ms. Davis," it began, "I'm Lisa Tran, editor at Modern Multiples. Your Triad Care app saved me while managing my twins. I'd love to feature it in our upcoming article. Would you be open to an interview?" Amara reread the message 3 times, stunned. Modern Multiples had hundreds of thousands of followers. It was the go-to source for twin and triplet moms. She replied immediately, her hands trembling as she typed, "Yes, I'd be honored. Thank you so much for reaching out." The article was published a week later under the title, Triad Care, the Miracle App by a Supermom. Lisa told Amara's story, a single mom of triplets who taught herself to code to create a tool for other mothers. She praised the app's ease of use and clever functionality. By the end of the day, Triad Care had 5,000 downloads. A week later, that number skyrocketed to 50,000, with hundreds of 5-star reviews. "This app saved my marriage," one reviewer wrote. "Finally, something that understands the chaos of 3 babies at once," said another. Amara sat on her apartment floor, clutching her laptop as she checked the stats, tears rolling down her cheeks. In-app purchases, premium features like long-term growth tracking, cost $2,000 in the first week alone. That amount surpassed all her web design earnings from the past 6 months. She scooped up Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, laughing through the tears. "We did it, girls! Mommy did it!" The unexpected success of Triad Care opened new doors. One morning, while pushing the triple stroller to the library to work, Amara received a phone call from David Mercer, a reporter at Tech Insight, a well-known tech magazine. "Ms. Davis, your app Triad Care is making waves. We'd love to interview you for a feature on independent developers. Do you have time? Amara said yes, though she was nervous. In the phone interview, she shared her journey of teaching herself programming. Nights spent coding by the dim glow of a laptop while her daughters slept. When David asked about her education, she hesitated, then answered honestly, "I'm studying business administration at a community college, but programming, I taught myself." David sounded impressed. Most successful apps come from engineers with degrees. You're the exception. The article was published with the headline, "From Single Mom to App Developer, the Story of Amara Davis." It highlighted the practicality of triad care and her inspiring path. Soon after, Amara began receiving emails from small investors asking about expansion plans and from a tech company interested in partnering. She read each message with a racing heart, realizing this wasn't just an app, but a chance to change her and her children's lives. Amara used $500 from Triad Care earnings to buy a new laptop, one powerful enough to run Xcode without freezing. She also paid 2 months' rent in advance, the first time she hadn't had to worry about eviction. That night, she sat beside the stroller, watching Chloe, Mia, and Zoe sleep peacefully. "I promise I'll get you to a better place," she whispered. "And this is only the beginning." She opened her business planning notebook and added a new goal: grow Triad Care into a platform for twin, triplet moms. Reach 100,000 downloads by next year. Amara knew the road ahead was still long, but for the first time, she didn't feel like she was surviving. She was building a future. Amara Davis stood in the small kitchen of her Bronx apartment, the fluorescent light casting shadows over a chaotic mess on the table. Plastic tubes, activated charcoal, and makeshift filters. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, now almost 4 years old, sat in high chairs, their bright eyes watching curiously as their mother tested a homemade water filtration device. "What are you doing, Mommy?" Chloe asked, holding a small plastic tube. "I'm making clean water, sweetheart," Amara replied with a tired smile, still worn out from a long night of coding for the Triad Care app. The idea for a water filter came during a family visit to Mississippi last summer. Amara had watched her cousin stand in line for hours to collect clean water from a government truck, while a nearby resort watered its lawns with automated sprinklers. That injustice stayed with her. She thought that if I could create a cheap, easy-to-use filter, people wouldn't have to live like this. With the success of Triad Care, now at 70,000 downloads and providing steady income, Amara committed to this new idea despite having no technical background. She began researching water purification, using free resources from the public library and online courses. She contacted Lena Carter, a retired environmental engineering professor she'd met through an online forum. Lena, impressed by Amara's persistence, agreed to mentor her remotely. "You've got a good concept, Amara," Lena said over a video call, examining her hand-drawn sketches. "But you must understand the filtration order. Sand removes debris, charcoal absorbs toxins, and the membrane blocks bacteria." Amara named her device Clean Flow, aiming to design a low-cost household filter that requires no electricity and uses accessible materials like recycled plastic and charcoal. She worked late at night after her daughters were asleep, experimenting on her kitchen counter. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe became her unofficial assistants, eagerly pouring dirty water through test prototypes. "It's clean now," Mia cheered when a murky sample turned clear, but Amara would check it with a home testing kit and shake her head. "Still unsafe, baby." Failures were constant. Once, the filter clogged, and water spilled all over the floor, leaving Amara on the verge of tears. "I'm not an engineer," she whispered to herself, doubting. But Lena reassured her. "Engineering isn't about a degree, Amara. It's about solving problems. And you're doing that. Amara kept going, adjusting the design, learning from every mistake. With surprising intuition, Mia once suggested rearranging the sand and charcoal layers. And suddenly, the water flow improved dramatically. After 4 months, Clean Flow was complete. A 50-centimeter filter with a $15 production cost, 1/3 the price of existing solutions. It could turn pond water into drinkable water, meeting basic safety standards. Amara sent a sample to a local lab, and the results confirmed that Clean Flow removed 99% of bacteria and 90% of heavy metals. Lena suggested Amara apply to the MIT Water Innovation Prize, a competition for clean water technology innovators. Most applicants are from universities or big startups, Amara said nervously, looking at the registration form that asked for academic credentials. I only went to community college. I didn't even graduate. Lena smiled. Your product is stronger than any diploma. Submit it. Amara completed the application at 3 a.m. while her daughters slept. She listed herself as an independent developer and Lena, her technical advisor, emphasizing Clean Flow's practicality. Low cost, easy assembly, ideal for low-income communities. As she hit submit, she looked at the family photo taped to her desk, Chloe, Mia, and Zoe on their first day of preschool, and told herself, no matter the outcome, I gave it everything. 2 weeks later, an email arrived from MIT. Congratulations! The Clean Flow project has been selected as a finalist. Please prepare to present in Cambridge on April 15th, Amara screamed, waking Zoe from a nap. She scooped her up and laughed. We're going to MIT, baby! On presentation day, Amara wore a navy blue suit she bought on sale, her curls tied up, and carried the Clean Flow prototype in her hands. The MIT conference hall buzzed with teams from prestigious schools like Stanford and Oxford, making her feel out of place. She thought I didn't belong here, but the photo of her girls in her jacket pocket reminded her why she was fighting. In front of a panel of judges, professors, CEOs, and investors, Amara began. My name is Amara Davis, and I am a self-taught engineer and single mother. Clean Flow was born from what I saw in Mississippi, where families waited in line for clean water while resorts watered lawns. This filter costs $15, requires no electricity, and brings safe water to those most in need. She spoke clearly, explaining each filter layer and cost breakdown and emphasizing the social impact. One judge, skeptical, asked, Your filtration order doesn't follow industrial standards. Why do you believe it's effective? Amara responded confidently. Industrial standards serve major cities. Clean Flow is for rural families, where $50 is a month's wage. It doesn't need to be perfect. It must be good enough and affordable. After the presentation, Amara waited anxiously in the lobby. The other teams chatted about high-tech labs and significant funding. She only had a kitchen table and Lena's guidance. When the announcement came, first place, $100,000, goes to Clean Flow by Amara Davis. She stood frozen. The crowd applauded, and Amara walked to the stage, tears streaming down her face. Keisha, who had brought Chloe, Mia, and Zoe as a surprise, shouted from the front row, That's my girl! The kids ran up and hugged her. You won, Mommy! Chloe shouted. Amara held them close, feeling the weight of the giant check. It wasn't just money. It was validation. It was a chance to build something bigger. We did it, girls, she whispered. And this is only the beginning. Morning sunlight poured through the large windows of a temporary office in San Francisco, where Amara Davis stood before a whiteboard, sketching out the production flow for the Clean Flow water filtration system. The room, on the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse, was the new headquarters of Davis Tech, the company she had founded with the $100,000 from her MIT Water Innovation Prize. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, now 8 years old, sat in the corner coloring on sheets of paper, occasionally glancing up at their mother curiously. At 30, Amara wore a simple but elegant blazer, her curls tied high, exuding the confident energy of someone who had endured and emerged from the hardest years of her life. 6 months earlier, Amara had made a bold decision: leave the Bronx and move to San Francisco, the heart of the tech world, where she could connect with investors and technical talent. The MIT prize money allowed her to lease this office, purchase basic equipment, and hire 2 young engineers from City College. But the real turning point came when Horizon Ventures, a renowned venture capital firm, offered to invest $5 million in Davis Tech, valuing the company at $20 million. "This is our chance to scale CleanFlow globally," Amara told her small team, her voice resolute. Amara set the mission for Davis Tech: deliver affordable, clean water to underserved communities, from rural Mississippi to remote villages in Africa. She envisioned the company's headquarters as more than a workplace. It would symbolize that mission. She collaborated with an architect to design a sustainable building, incorporating Harlem culture. Murals inspired by street art, vertical gardens with native plants, and a gray water recycling system to reduce water use by 60%. She said this building needs to tell our story, pointing to the blueprints. It has to show where we came from and where we're going. But building a company brought new challenges. Amara worked 16-hour days, meeting with investors, reviewing CleanFlow prototypes, and answering inquiries from potential partners. She often had to pause to handle issues, like a defective batch of filters due to low-quality plastic, or negotiate with suppliers to keep costs down. "We're not making luxury goods," she reminded her team. "Every dollar saved means another family gets clean water." Meanwhile, she stayed deeply involved with her daughters' lives. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe now attend a gifted student school in San Francisco on partial scholarships. Each child was thriving. Chloe loved solving complex math problems. Mia excelled in public speaking. And Zoe was passionate about biology, often asking her mother about bacteria in water. Amara turned dinner time into a family hour, sharing stories about work and listening to the girls talk about their day. "Mom, today we learned about ecosystems," Zoe said one evening, her eyes bright. "Can you build a filter for my fish tank?" Amara laughed and jotted the idea down. Balancing motherhood and leadership was one of her toughest challenges. One night, as Amara stayed up late finishing a report for Horizon Ventures, she heard crying from her daughter's room. Mia, usually bubbly, was clutching her pillow, eyes red. "I miss the Bronx. I miss Grandma," she whispered. Amara held her close, her heart heavy. "I know moving was hard, baby, but I promise, we're going to make a new home, and Grandma will visit soon." She called her mother, Grace, and arranged for her to fly in that weekend. "Don't forget those girls, Amara," Grace reminded her gently. "They need you more than your company does." Those words stayed with Amara. Using part of Horizon Ventures' capital, she established a trust fund for Chloe, Mia, and Zoe. She told her attorney that each of them would have support for education, healthcare, and one day, a business, if they needed it. "I want them to know they can dream big and have to work for it." It was her way of ensuring her children would never face the scarcity she once had. A significant breakthrough came that spring when Davis Tech secured a contract to supply 500 CleanFlow units to a small town in Mississippi, where Amara had once witnessed the clean water crisis firsthand. She led the team on site, bringing Chloe, Mia, and Zoe along so they could see the real-world impact of their work. Watching local children drink clean water from the filters Mia whispered. Mom, we're doing something big, aren't we? Amara nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, baby. And we're just getting started. The success drew attention. One morning, Amara received an email from the World Economic Forum inviting her to speak at a global water security summit in Davos. You're a new voice, Amara, the email read. We want to hear about clean flow. Amara looked at her daughters playing in the office corner and smiled. We're going to Switzerland, girls, she said, her voice excitedly glowing. Before the trip, Amara wrestled with doubt. As a black woman without a formal engineering degree, she knew she'd be scrutinized in Davos, a place full of CEOs and Ivy League academics. I don't belong there, she confessed to Keisha on the phone. I'm just a mom who taught herself to code and built a filter. Keisha burst out laughing. You belong anywhere you want, Amara. You built a company from nothing. Who dares say you don't deserve it? Those words lit a fire in Amara. She boarded the plane with Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, ready to face the world. She knew Davis Tech was more than a company. It was her legacy and her daughter's. It was proof that vision and grit could break through every barrier. We're going to make history, she whispered to her girls as the plane took off, her eyes burning with ambition. Morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of Davis Tech's headquarters in San Francisco, casting a glow over the Harlem-inspired street art mural. Amara Davis, now 32, stood before a group of investors in the conference room, presenting her expansion plan for CleanFlow, her affordable water filtration device. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, now 10, sat in the corner doing homework, occasionally glancing up at their mother with pride in their eyes. Wearing a sleek black suit, her curls tied up to reveal early streaks of silver, Amara spoke with confidence forged through years of struggle. CleanFlow has brought safe water to 2,000 people in Mississippi. With $10 million, we can deploy to 50 communities worldwide in the next 2 years. But the room didn't feel entirely supportive. One investor, Richard Hale, interrupted, voice skeptical. Ms. Davis, your product is impressive, but you don't have an engineering degree. How can we trust that your team, or you, can manage a project of this scale? Others nodded slightly, eyes narrowing. Amara felt her face flush, but she remained composed, smiling. Mr. Hale, I learned engineering during sleepless nights building CleanFlow on my kitchen counter. My product passed MIT evaluations and is already deployed in Mississippi. Those results speak louder than any degree. Silence followed. Another investor, Linda Chen, nodded and took notes. At the end of the meeting, Chen came forward to shake Amara's hand. You remind me of myself. I always doubted, constantly proving it with action. The deal was signed, an $8 million investment. But Hale's question lingered in Amara's mind. As a black woman without an academic pedigree, she knew prejudice would never entirely disappear. Amara had faced bias since the day Davis Tech began. In pitch meetings, she was often asked questions unrelated to the product. Where did you go to school? Who's really behind this company? How do you manage with 3 kids? These questions are rarely posed to white male CEOs. At a tech conference in Silicon Valley, an engineer from a major firm once mocked her openly. Your filter's a toy compared to our systems. Amara responded on stage. Your system costs $5,000 per unit. Mine is $15 and serves people who can't afford your toys. The crowd applauded, but she knew every such moment was a battle. The prejudice wasn't always external. A new engineer, Tom, inside her team, initially bristled at working under someone without a degree. Amara invited him to a field test in Oakland, where CleanFlow provided safe drinking water to a low-income housing complex. Watching children drink from the filters, Tom apologized. I was wrong, Ms. Amara. You understand this better than any engineer I know. She smiled, but her tone was firm. I don't need your approval to do my job, Tom. I need you to do yours. Amara's resilience was rooted in Chloe, Mia, and Zoe. Now, fourth graders at a gifted school were thriving. Chloe solved middle school math problems. Mia wrote speeches for school events. And Zoe studied bacteria in water using a toy microscope Amara had bought her. Amara integrated her daughters into company life. They helped test CleanFlow prototypes and even gave design input, such as adding colors to make the filters more appealing to children. Mom, the lid should be easier to open, Zoe suggested. Amara listened and improved the design. One evening, as Amara packed for her trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Mia asked, Mom, why do you work so much? Is it because people don't believe in you? Amara paused, then hugged her tightly. Sometimes, sweetie, people don't believe in me because I'm a black woman without a fancy degree. But I work hard to prove it to myself and you three, not to them. Mia nodded, eyes steady. I want to be like you when I grow up. At Davos, Amara entered a grand hall filled with CEOs, politicians, and Ivy League scholars, feeling like an outsider. She brought Chloe, Mia, and Zoe with her, wanting them to see the world beyond their own. In her presentation, she spoke clearly. Clean water is not a luxury. It's a human right. CleanFlow cuts the cost by 2/3 and brings water to those forgotten by traditional systems. The crowd gave a standing ovation. A German CEO approached afterward. Your thinking is disruptive. We need to collaborate. Her daughters left an impression too. Mia held a conversation in Spanish at a reception with a Mexican delegate. Chloe explained how CleanFlow worked to an engineer, and Zoe asked a professor about antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Your daughters are extraordinary, one investor commented. Amara smiled. They're the reason I'm here. Back in San Francisco, Amara received a contract to supply 1,000 CleanFlow units to an African NGO. She hosted a small celebration in the office, cookies and juice for the team. But later that night, as her daughters slept, she sat alone, rereading Hale's email. You don't have an engineering degree, she wrote in her journal. I don't need a degree to change the world. I need Chloe, Mia, Zoe, and myself. Amara knew that prejudice would always exist, but every CleanFlow unit and every smile from her children proved that she was stronger than the doubt. We will keep going, she whispered, gazing out over the San Francisco skyline, ready for the next challenge. Amara Davis's apartment in San Francisco, now far more spacious than her old place in the Bronx, became the command center of Davis Tech when the COVID-19 pandemic erupted in early 2020. The glow from her laptop screen lit her face as the now 34-year-old Amara led a Zoom meeting from her living room. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, now 12, sat around the dining table, headphones loose on their ears, doing online schoolwork while half listening to their mother's strategic discussion. Outside the window, the city was silent under lockdown, but inside Amara, a fire of resolve burned brightly. We're not just going to survive this pandemic, she told her team through the screen. We're going to make a difference. The pandemic rocked industries, but for Davis Tech, with its CleanFlow water filtration system, it brought both unprecedented opportunity and challenge. Amara received hospital reports existing water filtration systems couldn't keep up with the surge in surgeries and intensive care needs. Clean water is life or death in healthcare, she said firmly. We need to pivot. Amara called her engineering team together, requesting the design of a new version of CleanFlow specifically for hospitals, compact, high capacity, able to filter both bacteria and medical-grade chemicals. She named it CleanFlow Med. The timeline was tight, only 3 months to get it to market. "We don't have a state-of-the-art lab or a massive budget," she told her engineers. "But we have creativity and a mission." She worked 18-hour days from her home office, coordinating with suppliers via Zoom, reviewing prototypes through video calls, and negotiating expedited approval with health agencies. Financial pressure mounted. With factories temporarily shut down, Amara had to draw from reserve funds to keep her staff employed and production running. She slashed personal spending, refusing to buy a new car despite her old Prius breaking down regularly. One night, surrounded by unpaid invoices, she sat on the sofa with her head in her hands, questioning whether she could lead Davis Tech through the storm. Zoe, ever intuitive, came over and hugged her. "Mom, I know you'll do it. You always do." Amara smiled through tears. "Thank you, baby." Chloe, Mia, and Zoe weren't just her motivation. They became intellectual partners. While Amara discussed bacteria in hospital water systems one afternoon, Chloe, ever the math prodigy, suggested optimizing the flow rate with a simple algorithm. A gifted communicator, Mia helped her mom draft an email to international partners and translated it into Spanish for a hospital in Mexico. Zoe, the budding biologist, studied viruses in water through online resources and proposed adding a compact UV filter. Zoe said, "UV kills 99.9% of viruses," handing her mom a scientific article. Amara implemented the idea, and CleanFlow Med improved dramatically. After 2 relentless months, CleanFlow Med was ready. A 1-meter-tall unit, installable in 24 hours, costing $500, 50% cheaper than competitors. Amara sent a prototype to Massachusetts General Hospital, where it was deployed in the ICU. The results exceeded expectations. The filter doubled clean water output and supported 20 surgeries per day. Ms. Davis, the hospital director, wrote in a thank-you email that your product is saving lives. Success spread. CNN reported, Davis Tech pivots at lightning speed, delivering clean water to 400 U.S. hospitals. Orders poured in, from New York to California, and then globally. Brazil, India, and South Africa. Amara reopened a factory in Oakland, hiring 50 new workers under strict safety protocols. She paid higher wages and provided masks and gloves. "They're risking themselves for us," she told her team. "We have to protect them." Revenue skyrocketed, from $2 million last quarter to $7 million. Amara used a portion of the profits to donate 100 CleanFlow Med units to public hospitals in impoverished areas. "This isn't just business," she told Forbes in an interview. "This is responsibility." But the pandemic brought personal challenges too. The lockdown kept Chloe, Mia, and Zoe in online school, and the girls struggled with isolation. One night, Mia threw down her headphones and yelled, "I hate Zoom school. I want to see my friends." Amara hugged her and listened. "I know it's hard, baby, but we're a team. Please tell me what you need." Mia suggested a weekly family day, just for games and pizza. Amara agreed, turning Saturdays into bonding time that helped the girls cope. Amara also faced health pressures. The non-stop work left her exhausted, with constant headaches and insomnia. Keisha, calling from New York via FaceTime, warned her, "You can't save the world if you collapse, Amara." Using YouTube videos, she started doing 15-minute yoga each morning, guided by Zoe. "Mom, deep breath." Zoe giggled, standing beside her in a tree pose. Those small moments recharged Amara's spirit. By summer, Davis Tech had become a symbol of innovation during a crisis. Time named Amara among its notable leaders, praising her rapid pivot. In a virtual board meeting, her CFO reported, "We hit our annual revenue target in 6 months. CleanFlow Med is now serving 2 million patients monthly." Amara smiled, but immediately asked, "How's the filter donation program for underfunded hospitals progressing?" She never let the mission fall behind the money. One night, as her daughters slept, Amara sat alone on the balcony, looking out over the lights of San Francisco. She opened her journal and wrote, "Today, I saved lives. But what I'm most proud of is Chloe, Mia, and Zoe. They're not just my children. They're the future." The pandemic was far from over. But Davis Tech and her family had already proven that crisis could be a platform for transformation and light. Amara Davis's San Francisco apartment, with its large windows overlooking the bay, was bathed in warm golden light on a crisp autumn evening in 2020. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, now 13, sat around the dining table, each busy with her task. Chloe working on a calculus problem on her tablet, Mia drafting a speech for the debate club, and Zoe reading a scientific article about bacteria in water. In the kitchen, Amara, 34, stirred a pot of pumpkin soup, their favorite, but her mind was far away. COVID-19 still raged globally, and Davis Tech had just reached a significant milestone, delivering CleanFlow med units to 400 hospitals. But tonight, it wasn't work that troubled her. It was a question Mia had asked the week before at dinner. "Mom, who is our father?" Amara had prepared for this moment for years, but every time she thought of James Carver, the man who had walked out when she told him she was pregnant with triplets, her heart ached. She promised herself she'd tell the truth when her daughters were ready. And now, they were. She set the pot down, wiped her hands on her apron, and called out, "Girls, come here for a moment. I want to talk." The girls looked up, curiosity in their eyes. They set their things aside and pulled their chairs close, forming the familiar circle around the table. Amara sat across from them, took a deep breath, and began. "Mia asked about your father last week," she said calmly, though her eyes shimmered. "You're old enough now to know the whole story." Her voice slowed, as if she were opening an old, dusty book. She told them she'd met James at a gala in Manhattan when she was 25, working as a server to pay for college. She said he was an investor, Yale graduate, confident, competent, watching their faces. "I was drawn to how he spoke about the world like he had it all figured out." She recalled romantic dates by the Hudson River and lavish gifts, and how James kept her hidden from his social world. "I realized he was ashamed of me, a black girl from Harlem with no degree or family name." Chloe frowned, clutching her pencil. "Why did you stay with someone like that?" Amara gave a sad smile. "Because I loved him, Chloe, and I hoped he would change." Then, she reached the most challenging part. When she found out she was pregnant with triplets, she prepared a special dinner to tell him. "I thought he'd be shocked but happy," she said, her voice tightening. "But he stood up, said and you three didn't fit his life. He left $2,000 on the table, told me to take care of it, and walked out. I never heard from him again." She looked into their blue eyes, James's eyes, and felt her chest tighten. Mia, ever the empathetic one, reached for her hand. "He left you when you needed him most?" Her voice shook, not from sadness, but anger. Amara nodded. "Yes, Mia, but I don't regret it, because I have you. It was the best thing that ever happened to me." Zoe, quiet but sharp, spoke up, her eyes intense. "He knew about us and still left?" Amara didn't sugarcoat it. "He knew I was pregnant with triplets. He said a family would ruin his career." Chloe, ever logical, did the math quickly. $2,000? That's insufficient to raise 3 kids in New York for 1 month. She shook her head. "He didn't just leave us. He saw us as a problem to erase." Amara watched the storm of emotions cross their faces. Anger, hurt, and strength. Mia asked, her voice small but firm, "Did you ever want him to come back?" Amara shook her head. No, sweetheart. I learned to live without him. And I'm proud to have raised you into the amazing girls you are. Not because of him, but because of my love, Grandma's support, and your strength. The conversation continued into the night, soup growing cold on the table. They asked more questions. What did James look like? What did he do now? Did they inherit anything from him besides his blue eyes? Amara answered honestly. She described James's intelligence, ambition, coldness, and calculation. You have his mind, she said. But your hearts, your courage, that's from me. And that's what matters. Zoe, pensive as always, asked the question that made Amara pause. Does he know how successful you are? About Davis Tech? About us? Amara shook her head. I haven't spoken to him since that night, Zoe. I don't know if he ever followed our lives. And honestly, I don't care. This life is ours. A hush settled over the room. The girls exchanged glances, communicating with the silent language only triplets shared. Then Chloe, speaking for all three, said, We don't need him, Mom. We have you, and we have each other. That's enough. Mia nodded, adding, He made a mistake leaving us. That's his loss, not ours. Zoe closed the circle, her voice gentle but firm. We're proud to be your daughters. Tears welled up in Amara's eyes, but she smiled and pulled them into a hug. You girls are my strength, she whispered. I promise I'll always be honest with you. And if one day you want to find him, I'll support you. But do it for you, not for him. After that night, Amara noticed subtle shifts in them. Chloe became more focused, finishing her math problems with a new sense of purpose. Mia wrote a powerful speech about her family for school, which earned praise from her teachers. Zoe started sketching a design for a new water filter, saying she wanted to help Mom save more lives. They never mentioned James again, but Amara knew the story had left a mark. Not a wound, a fire. That night, after they were asleep, Amara opened her journal and wrote, Today, I told my daughters about James. I was afraid it would break them. But they're stronger than I ever imagined. They don't need a father. They have each other. And they have me. That is my most significant victory. She closed the journal, looked out at the sparkling lights of San Francisco Bay, and felt a rare peace settle over her. James was no longer a ghost haunting her. He was the past. And she had built a brilliant present. The Plaza Hotel in Manhattan glittered with crystal chandeliers, reflecting off tuxedos and evening gowns of the financial and academic elite. Amara Davis, now 38, entered the ballroom in a crimson Valentino gown, a bold splash of color amidst the sea of black and navy. Beside her were Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, 15-year-old triplets, each in sapphire, pearl, and silver dresses, radiating their individuality while reflecting their unbreakable bond. With streaks of silver in her coiled curls, Amara carried the confidence of a billionaire founder of Davis Tech, now valued over $1 billion thanks to the Clean Flow water purification device. Tonight, she was here to receive the Entrepreneur of the Year award from the Yale Business School Alumni Association, a poignant honor, given she had never attended Yale or any Ivy League school. Amara gently squeezed Mia's hand, drawing warmth from her daughter, but a flutter of anxiety remained. New York was the city where James Carver, her former lover, abandoned her when she was pregnant with triplets. Returning now, flanked by her daughters and armed with hard-won success, felt like stepping into a reckoning. You okay, Mom? Zoe asked, ever attuned to her mother's emotions. Amara smiled. I'm okay, sweetheart. Tonight is about celebrating, not revisiting the past. Across the room, James Carver, now 45, stood amidst a cluster of Yale alums, swirling a glass of scotch. With flecks of gray in his hair and a tailored Brioni suit, he still had an air of elegance, though his eyes carried fatigue. As managing director of a mid-tier investment bank, James's career had plateaued, never reaching the heights he once envisioned. He was chatting with an old friend, Richard Langston, when the honoree's name caught his ear. Amara Davis, founder of Davis Tech. Over $1 billion company, clean water innovation. She never went to Yale, but they say she's a genius. James froze. His glass halted mid-swish. Amara Davis? He repeated, voice low. Richard nodded. She brought her triplet daughters, all prodigies. The middle one published a science paper at 14. James's pulse quickened. Triplets, 15 years old. The timing fits perfectly. He looked toward the entrance, where Amara had just arrived, radiant and powerful, flanked by 3 girls with strikingly familiar blue eyes. His blood ran cold. No, it can't be, he whispered. Amara overlooked James at first. She led her daughters to the head table, shaking hands with board members and chatting with a Yale professor about water tech. Chloe discussed filtration algorithms with an engineer. Mia explained their STEM education project, and Zoe asked a biologist about antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Your daughters are extraordinary, noted Jonathan Pierce, the association president. Amara smiled. They are my future. From a distance, James watched in turmoil. He remembered the night he left Amara, leaving behind $2,000 and cruel words. You're not a fit for my life. Now, she was a billionaire, honored by Yale. Those girls, his daughters, were brilliant stars. He drained his drink, mustering courage, and approached as Amara stood alone by the stage. Amara, he called hoarsely. She turned, surprise flashing briefly before her face cooled. James Carver, she said evenly. What a surprise. He stumbled for words. You look successful. I heard about Davis Tech. She raised an eyebrow. Successful? Or finally good enough for Yale? The thing you said I'd never reach. Before James could respond, Chloe, Mia, and Zoe returned from speaking with an MIT professor. Mom, the Stanford dean wants to talk to you about our microplastics project, Chloe said, then glanced at James, curious. Amara stayed composed. Girls, this is Mr. James Carver, an old acquaintance. The girls shook hands politely, unaware he was their biological father. Mia, ever sharp, asked, Yale 98, right? I read your HBR article. Your analysis of emerging markets lacked practical data. James blinked, stunned by her confidence. Chloe added, your firm underperformed the S&P 500 by 15% last quarter. Mom taught us to analyze market trends. James felt like he'd been punched. A senator stepped in to congratulate Amara, breaking the tension. The girls left, leaving Amara and James alone. He whispered, They're mine, aren't they? Amara nodded, voice cold. Biologically, yes, but they're mine in every other sense. I raised them. James paled. Why didn't you tell me? Amara laughed bitterly. You told me I was a burden, that 3 kids didn't fit your future. What was I supposed to say, James? He reached for her hand. Please, we need to talk. Just us. She stared into his eyes, saw the desperation, and nodded. Rooftop. 10 minutes. The rooftop wind was crisp. Amara stood at the edge, gazing over the city that had witnessed her darkest days. James approached, voice shaking. I never imagined you'd be here. A billionaire. Yale is honoring you. Amara turned, eyes sharp. That's the problem. You never imagined I could be. What did you see in me 15 years ago? Just a waitress who wasn't good enough? James bowed his head. I want to meet them, Amara. I want to make it right. She laughed, painful and sardonic. Make it right? When I worked 18-hour days, raised them alone? When we were evicted, and I couldn't afford formula? Now you want what? A family you once called unsuitable? I have money and connections. I can help them. Amara shook her head. Davis Tech is worth more than your bank. My daughters have trust funds that could buy your apartment. We don't need you. The rooftop door creaked open. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe stepped out. Mom, we're done. Mia said we've got that Singapore call tomorrow. Then paused, sensing the tension. Zoe asked gently, Mom, is everything okay? Amara inhaled deeply. Girls, Mr. Carver, is your biological father. Silence. Their eyes moved from Amara to James. Chloe, always logical, said, You knew about us 15 years ago and chose to leave? James nodded, voice thin. Most significant mistake of my life. Mia, blunt. Why show up now? James had no answer. Zoe concluded calmly, Fatherhood is about actions, not DNA. You're not our father. James stepped forward, pleading. Give me a chance. One dinner. A visit. Chloe cut him off. We're busy with school, our STEM fund, and Mom's research. We don't have time for uncertain commitments. Jonathan Pierce appeared concerned. Is everything all right, Ms. Davis? Amara nodded. We're finished here. She led her daughters away without looking back. James stood frozen, whispers rising in the crowd below. Carver's their father, and he abandoned them. His reputation unraveled in an instant. Amara and the girls stepped into their limousine. You okay, Mom? Zoe asked. Amara squeezed her daughter's hand. I'm okay, because I have you. She gazed out at Manhattan, knowing she had won, not through revenge, but through a luminous life fully lived. Sunset bathed San Francisco Bay in gold, pouring through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Davis Tech office, where Amara Davis, now 38, reviewed the quarterly report. The numbers were staggering. Revenue was up 65% year over year. CleanFlow and CleanFlow Med had delivered clean water to 5 million people across 32 countries, and the company's valuation had officially surpassed $1.5 billion. Amara, in a deep sapphire silk dress, her silver-streaked curls tied back, smiled as she glanced at the corner of the room, where Chloe, Mia, and Zoe, now 15, were deeply discussing their latest science project. With their sharp blue eyes, James Carver's legacy, and unshakable confidence, Amara's legacy, they radiated the strength she had nurtured through years of hardship. Since the Yale Gala, where Amara and the girls had confronted James, their lives had entered a new chapter. She never replied to James's email apology, which included a trust fund and a resignation letter from his bank. He's no longer part of our story, she told Keisha on FaceTime. We've moved beyond that. Yet the gala had left its mark, not in pain, but in clarity. She and her daughters had built a life far beyond what James once deemed unsuitable. In spring 2024, Chloe, Mia, and Zoe received their college acceptance letters. Chloe to MIT for environmental engineering, Mia to Stanford for public policy and media, and Zoe to Yale for biology and medical technology. Amara hosted a small celebration at home, joined only by family and Keisha, who flew in from New York. The dining table was covered in homemade cookies and the girls' favorite pumpkin soup. Yale. Huh, Zoe? Amara teased, raising her juice glass. You picked the school where their father once used to belittle me. How poetic. Zoe laughed, her eyes bright. I chose Yale for their environmental science program, Mom. But yes, it's a little funny, Chloe added, ever logically, that we're not studying to prove anything to him. We're doing it to change the world, like you. Mia, always the emotional one, took her mother's hand. You gave us everything. We'll make you proud. Amara blinked back tears, hugging all three. You already have, every single day. She looked at them, Chloe with her sharp mind, Mia with her empathy, Zoe with her depth, and knew her most significant legacy wasn't Davis Tech. It was them. Davis Tech continued to expand, signing new contracts across Asia and Africa, where Clean Flow Med was deployed in underserved hospitals. Amara turned down multiple acquisition offers, including a $200 million bid from a major tech conglomerate. We don't build to sell, she told her team during a meeting. We build to solve problems. She reinvested profits into a STEM fund for underprivileged children, especially young Black girls, inspired by her journey. Chloe, Mia, and Zoe joined in managing the fund, hosting webinars to teach programming and science to students in Harlem and Oakland. Amara also returned to Harlem, where she founded a community center with free Clean Flow access. At the opening ceremony, she stood beside her mother, Grace, before a crowd. Clean water is a right, not a privilege, she declared. I grew up here, and I want all my children to know they can change the world. The crowd erupted in applause, and Grace embraced her, whispering, You did it, Amara. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, James Carver lived in quiet isolation. After the gala, his reputation collapsed. 2 major clients withdrew, and financial media resurfaced the story of how he abandoned Amara and their daughters. He downsized to a smaller apartment and spent his evenings reading articles about Davis Tech and his daughter's achievements. One night, he opened Amara's last email, marked no response needed, and realized he had lost everything. Not just his family, but his self-respect. In his journal, he wrote, I thought I had control, but I was wrong. Amara and the girls were the most remarkable thing I ever threw away. Chapter. One evening, Amara sat on her apartment balcony, watching the lights of San Francisco shimmer. She opened her journal and wrote, Today, I realized victory isn't defeating James or proving him wrong. Victory is the life we've built. Chloe, Mia, Zoe, and I. Free from the past, focused on the future. She closed the book and listened to the laughter of her daughters from the living room, where they were debating their next STEM initiative. Amara rose and joined them. Mom, we should host a workshop on renewable energy, Chloe suggested. Mia proposed adding Spanish language sessions for the Latino community. Zoe added that I want to study how Clean Flow can remove microplastics. They're killing the oceans. Amara laughed, her heart full. You are my daughter. Later, as they slept, Amara stood at the window, enveloped in a profound peace. She didn't need Yale or James's validation to know her worth. She had Chloe, Mia, and Zoe. Brilliant, bold, bearing Harlem's heart and a global vision. They were her legacy, triumph, and living proof that love, perseverance, and faith could overcome prejudice. In Manhattan, James Carver stared at a Forbes cover featuring Amara beneath the headline, The Billionaire Woman, Revolutionizing Clean Water. He would live with regret. But Amara and her daughters? They moved forward, free, radiant, and unshakably whole.